All right, so in this video, we are going to be looking at the basic ways to teach a motion offense or a 5-out offense. Now, basically what we're going to be looking at here is, how to teach this to younger age groups that are just kind of learning for the first time how to space the floor, how to play the game with positionless basketball, right? So we're going to enforce that, enforce spacing, and enforce continuous movement, whether that's through cutting or screening away. We're basically going to be focusing on teaching these principles first before we go into actually teaching a 5-out offense. So in this video, we're going to break down a few drills, a step-by-step guide on how to teach that basic motion offense to youth athletes. So the first drill that we're going to look at is basically teaching how to pass and cut for the athlete, right? We want to break it down into a very simple form. We want to teach the athletes how to pass and cut. And before we even get into any 5-out or any motion offense or anything like that, we need the athletes to understand this basic concept. So what we'll do is we'll have two lines, one line right here. This line will typically have a basketball or two, and we'll also have a second line right here. And this line will have no basketballs in their hand. So this line starts with the basketball. And right here, the 4, 5, and 6 line, we want to teach them how to cut. So we're going to show them a basic kind of V cut into the key and out to try to get open. So we're going to start with number 4. Number 4 is first in line. Number 1 has the basketball in their hand. This is a very simple drill. Number 4 is going to cut in the key and outside of the key, back up to the 3-point line. As that happens, number 1 is going to hit number 4 with a pass. After that, we want to teach number 1, this line up here, number 1, 2, and 3. We want to teach them how to cut to look for the basketball. So first we want to show them that when you cut, you want to have your hands up to receive the basketball, receive the target. And then you want to receive that target and go up for a layup. So number 1, we pass the ball to number 4. Number 1 is going to cut as close to the key as possible and have their hands up for the target. Number 4 is going to hit number 1 with the pass. As that's happening, number 4 hit number 1 with the pass. Number 1 has the basketball. Number 1 is going to go up for a layup. Okay, in this particular situation, it's a left-hand layup. If the lines were on the other side, it would be a right-hand layup. Number 4 is going to follow, and number 4 is going to rebound the basketball. So number 1 does their layup. They finish at the rim. They continue running. Number 4 rebounds the basketball. They're going to continue running, and then the two athletes are going to switch lines. So number 1 is going to run this way backwards, so they're not getting in the middle of the drill. They're going to fill this line, and number 4 with the basketball, they're going to fill this line. Now, like I said, you're going to want 1 or 2 basketballs in this drill. So we're going to assume number 2 already has a basketball. Number 5 is going to do the same thing. They're going to come inside the key and out. Number 2 is going to hit them with the pass. Number 2 is going to cut for the basketball and look for the ball. Number 5 is going to hit them with the pass. And number 2 is going to continue going for their left-hand layup. Number 5 will follow, get the rebound, and both groups continue to fill the opposite line. You'll continue this. I would recommend running it on each side. So maybe you start with this line right here, and then after maybe a few minutes, once you see that your players understand this basic concept, you move the line over here. That way, you can exercise both left-hand layups and right-hand layups. But the basic concept here that we're going over is how to pass and cut, right? How to pass and cut and receive the basketball for a layup. This is basically everything you need to know for a 5-out offense. You can't have a 5-out offense for your players without having this basic concept, right? So before we even move on to anything else with a 5-out, we have to understand how to pass and cut. Spurs drill. Now, for this particular drill, we're going to basically start to slowly teach the basic concepts of spacing on offense, right? So we're going to start with 3 players. Personally, I think 3-on-3 is always the best way to go when you're teaching spacing. It just breaks this down for young athletes to really understand the basic concepts of what they need to do to space the floor. Now, don't get me wrong, this particular drill isn't just for young athletes. I've seen lots of older teams do this before. I've even seen NBA teams do this to reinforce their spacing before they go into their particular plays from practice videos of coaches that we've seen online. So this has been proven, and this is something we run with even up to our U18 teams to get them warmed up as a basic starter for practice, but also to, like I said, reinforce the spacing. But if you're starting with a younger age group and you really want to break down those concepts, this is a great drill for that as well. So basically what we're going to do here is, kind of start in a 3-on-3 type of scenario. Just offense on the floor, just 3 players. If you have, multiple players in the gym, you can have some subs kind of waiting at the baseline. But all we're going to basically do here is we're not even going to try to score the basketball. We're just passing and cutting. So number 1 starts off with the basketball. We have number 2 and number 3 at the wing, elbow extended, right? So basically, all these guys are going to do, so I'll reset my players in real quick. All these players are going to do, number 2 and number 3 at the wing, is they're going to find a way to get open quickly. So whether that's a V cut, whether they want to pop in, pop out, we just want them to find a way to get open. We want to enforce that, okay, when, your point guard is bringing the ball down the floor at a younger age group, you have to move to get open. So we typically start with a little V cut, in and out cut. Now, as that's happening, number 1 will pass the ball to number 2. Now, we want to enforce to number 1 that you never stand still after passing the basketball. You always have to move. So what we'll quickly enforce, eventually we'll add on other elements here, but we'll start off with a cut. So we'll have number 1 cut to look for the ball. As they're doing that, they're going to touch the elbow, right? And we're going to have them have their hands up with a target, just to enforce that basic, I pass, I immediately cut. So we have them look for the basketball. Now, in this situation, nobody's scoring. So number 2 is not going to pass them the basketball. Number 1 is just going to continue extending all the way over here to where number 3 is. So let's move number 1. He passes the ball over to number 2. He looks for the basketball, doesn't get it. So number 1 continues all the way over here. Now, what we're going to enforce is number 3, you're not going to stand still either. So you just see number 1 look for the basketball and didn't get it. They're now taking your spot. You're going to take number 1 spot. So what we're going to have number 3 do is cut as well. They're touching the free throw line, pop up to the 3-point line. Number 2 passes the ball back to number 3. Now we are reset again, okay? What we'll immediately have then after that is a ball swing. So number 3 will pass the ball to number 1. We really like to enforce at a young age the swing. So as they're passing that ball back and forth, number 3 says swing, passes the ball over to number 1. So that's happening. Number 3 looks for that cut again, touches the elbow, doesn't get it. So they're going to go fill the spot over here that number 2 did. So number 3 looks for the pass, doesn't get it. They're going to fill number 2's spot. Number 2 then is going to do the same thing that number 1 just did. They're going to pop into the free throw line, pop outside to the 3. We're going to reset, immediately have another ball swing. So number 2 immediately swings that ball over to number 3. Number 2, same thing. This is continuous. Number 2 is going to look for the basketball right here on the cut. Doesn't get it. Resets. Number 1, same thing. Fill that spot, pop up. Okay? We reset the basketball. Now, I'm sure you're wondering at what point will we try to score the basketball? Well, we'll eventually run this. We typically try to do it for about 50 seconds to 1 minute, and then the coach will blow the whistle. When the coach blows the whistle, that means that the next swing on that cut to the elbow, number 3 will hit them, or whoever's at the wing will hit the cutter with the pass, and then we have a layup. So this drill is really good because it enforces our positions on the floor, right? We're learning that, spacing. We're also working on passing and cutting. We're also working on filling positions, and we're also working on swinging the basketball from side to side. So lots of great elements here to work on for this particular drill. All right, folks, so we hope you enjoyed this particular video about spacing and cutting with a 5-out offense. Basically, what we wanted to cover here was to handle, basically everything that we need to know before we teach a 5-out offense, right? What do our youth players need to know before we go into actually teaching, the fundamentals of a 5-out? And that's passing, it's cutting, spacing, and swinging the basketball. And those are the 4 main topics that we're looking at here with these 2 drills. So we focus on these 2 drills for our first practice or so before we go into that 5-out offense. Typically, my experience is that the athletes have a little bit of a better understanding of how to grasp onto a 5 out. Before you just throw them, a 5 out offense, or the basic fundamentals of what they need to do. It's good muscle memory. Good to run this a good few times. And what I like to do as well is, even when we are teaching a 5 out, I'll oftentimes have my athletes warm up with the Spurs drill or warm up with a passing cut, just to kind of reinforce those concepts over and over.